So welcome everybody. This is the last BFN Zoom meeting before the March 23rd rallies that are happening in over 100 different locations across the country 1 week from today. This meeting is fighting for a strong contract, means fighting privatization. The BFN coordinating committee has met and discussed that you really can't talk about one without talking about the other. But before I get into stuff and before I introduce the speakers, I want to give a little bit of a background. I know we all know what's going on, but it's been a crazy month and a half. It's been only a month and a half. The sellout tentative agreement was rejected. It's a historic no vote, an over 2-to-1 margin. We all know that. We all were part of that. I think most people in this room probably voted no. Since that time, Trump, Musk, and Doge have gone after federal agencies and workers, firing thousands, slashing budgets. DeJoy announced his resignation plans. There was an executive order from the Trump administration that was leaked with plans to privatize USPS, attack wages, conditions, benefits, and service. Wells Fargo, this isn't just something that we think, Wall Street is excited about for their own evil reasons, but Wells Fargo investment, their investment bank, authored a report showing plans for if privatization happens, what does that look like? And how could we make it profitable? How could we make a bunch of money off of it? And they had things like raising rates 30% to 140% on a variety of products, attacking wages and benefits of the workforce, worsening service, slowing down service. And they really are foaming at the mouth at the billions and billions of dollars of real estate that USPS has, that they would obviously love to sell off and downgrade us to probably worse facilities out in the suburbs. Just to name a few things. So it's just to show that Wall Street and, the billionaires, they're thinking about what this would look like. This is a very serious threat. At the same time, it was announced that expedited arbitration has come out, which very disappointingly and against the wishes of the membership. It seems like Renfro and the leadership are accepting work rule changes that the NALC members overwhelmingly rejected in the TA, and are accepting everything that was in the TA and just talking about just fighting for the economics. It's obviously not what we wanted, what the membership wanted when we rejected this TA, but that's something we also need to fight against. And then just this week, it was announced that USPS invited Doge in. There are plans. These are just the beginning stages. The plans for 10,000 job cuts through early retirements, looking at internal workings of USPS, some of the funding and all that stuff. This is the first step in the process of what Doge has been doing, what we've seen in other federal agencies. So there's a real question, how do we fight back against this stuff? Because they're not going to stop there. And this is where I think March 23rd rallies come in. Mike Cariff had originally called for a rally in D.C. on that date. BFN, we took up that call and said it should be nationally coordinated. There should be a day of action everywhere. We've been arguing this for 2 years now, going all the way back to Branch 9's March 2023 contract rally. Our last meeting was a month ago, and at that time, there were plans to have BFN members pass resolutions and motions in their branches to hold rallies. But in that time, we were able to pressure the leadership to call for national rallies. And now, because of that, which is good, we've been fighting for this for years, is what a whole point of open bargaining was. We've pressured them to take up this position in this fight. There are rallies in over 100 locations. I think 111 is the last time I counted. 111 locations across the country on March 23rd. That doesn't include places where multiple branches are or co-hosting rallies. So in Branch 9, in Minnesota, for example, we have 4 or 5 different branches all co-hosting an event. And so there are hundreds, anywhere from up to more than 200 branches of NALC are participating in these rallies. We were, in my opinion, this is our best opportunity before an executive order is released to show the willingness to fight on the part of postal workers and to show the support that we have among the public. This alone can't beat back the Musk and Doge attacks, but it can be a really important first step in that fight. I think a lot of our coworkers have a bit of a wait-and-see approach. Our job in the reform, which is understandable, people can't freak out about this forever, but those of us who are getting organized, who are conscious of this stuff, we have a role to play in our job in the reform movement is to show and highlight the real possibilities of these attacks. This Wells Fargo report, what they're doing at other federal agencies, what they've signaled, what Musk has said himself, and prepare our union to fight back. We don't have to run around like chickens with our heads cut off, but we do have to prepare and fight back. And so I do have to just say this. I think there's a bit of a missed opportunity from the CLC and Cariff that they didn't throw their full weight behind this. I looked to see if there was any statements from either group, and I haven't seen much other than there was a call-in campaign, which is, it's good. as a part of a broader fight back strategy. But I really think there's a missed opportunity there. We can't write off these forces forever, but we got to be honest with ourselves. If the entire reform movement had thrown their full weight behind this, we would have many more rallies and better organized rallies. We can organize and build the strongest March 23rd rallies possible without giving cover to Renfro and the leadership. Like, we can do both. In Branch 9, for example, we're combining the fight against privatization to the fight for a strong contract. You can do both. And in fact, you cannot fight for a strong contract without fighting against privatization. You can't tell the members who just voted down a TA and have been waiting and fighting for a contract for years that doesn't matter anymore. Let's just focus on privatization. These two things are linked. And we encourage BFN members to discuss these things in their branches, to put them in speeches at March 23rd rallies and more. And so, yeah, just a few last things on this before I get into building BFN at these rallies and get to the speakers. Just this week, House Republicans, there was two of them, one in Tennessee and one in Utah, I can't remember their names, introduced a bill attempting to ban collective bargaining rights for federal workers. This needs to be fought. This needs to be organized against. These are real threats. Even if this version of this bill doesn't pass, they're coming for our collective bargaining rights. They're trying to union bust. And so federal workers, public sector workers, are the first line of defense in this all-out attack on unions and the working class. If they beat us, the bosses will feel emboldened and will try to go after the private sector. No amount of cozying up to the Trump administration will stop that. I think Federal Unionists Network, a coalition of federal workers from across dozens of federal unions, shows what is possible. They've organized rallies across the country, helped to give an organized expression to fighting back against these attacks. And so just the last thing I want to say before I introduce the speakers and get going here, we want to use these rallies on the 23rd to help build the fight back against privatization for a strong contract, but also build BFN chapters, build cores, recruit people essentially to BFN for this longer term project that we have of transforming our union. We can do all of that in the process. This week, we're finalizing it, but we have a BFN flyer we're going to send out to people that will have a QR code to join the BFN on the website, but also you can use it as an opportunity to start a discussion with people at the rally. Don't use it just as the rally is just you come out and use it as an opportunity. Don't let any opportunity go missed. So flyer the crowd, have discussions, identify who wants to build, who wants to be a core of a BFN chapter in your area. Again, use speeches to highlight BFN's program, what letter carriers need, how that's linked to building a movement to fight against privatization. And I really wanted to highlight a key demand of BFN going forward, which has been for over a year now, is the right to strike. This moment shows exactly why strike action could be necessary, why federal workers should have this right to fight for a strong contract, to fight back against any major attacks from Trump, from Musk, from Doge. This demand will become increasingly important. It will help us identify our coworkers who want to get seriously organized. And so I really encourage people to highlight that demand. But at today's Zoom meeting, we'll have a few speakers up front. We'll open it up for discussion. Most of us who've been here before know how this works. Try to keep the meeting to an hour and a half. And try to keep contributions to like 3 or 4 minutes if you can. I'll time you. And I'll try to, ask you to wrap up. But I'll explain all this before when we get to the discussion portion. As you saw, Tim is putting the sign-in sheet for today's event in the chat. I'll be doing that periodically throughout. I really encourage everyone to sign in because there is it's the best way we can know who showed up. It's good to know not just who signed up to come to the meeting, who actually showed up, but also we can share with you the flyers and the materials coming out of today's event. And then I want to highlight one specific question in that sign-up sheet, which is, are you organizing a March 23rd rally? And if so, would you like to have a speaker from the Federal Unionists Network? Indicate in the sign-up sheet. We'll make sure that they get in touch with you if they have federal FUN, they're called. That's the acronym, FUN, FUN members in your area. We'll share that info with them so they can reach out to you and get someone connected. It'd be really good. We want to highlight that this is a broader fight than just for postal workers. This is one of all public sector workers, all working class people. And so with that, I'm going to open it up, or I'm going to introduce our speakers right now. So first up, we will have Margot O'Neill from Branch 352 in Des Moines, Iowa. She's going to talk about her experience building BFN there, but also the need to connect with APWU, how they've done that there, the need for broader labor solidarity. John Murphy from Branch 4716 in Naples, Florida. Is going to talk about the petition calling on Renfro not to accept these work rule changes that we rejected in expedited arbitration. Also about the need to link the anti-privatization fight to the fight for a strong contract. And then we'll hear from Paul Osadebe, who's a member of the AFG, that's the American Federation of Government Employees, Local 476. He's an organizer with FUN, with the Federal Unionists Network. After that, we'll open it up for discussion and close out the meeting, and I'll explain that discussion portion again once we get there. And so with that, again, Tim's going to periodically put that sign-in sheet in the chat. Please do that. Please sign in so we can get you all that necessary information. And I'm going to turn it over to Margot to kick us off. Margot, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me?
All right. Yep, sounds good.
Excellent. Hi there, everyone. I'm so happy to see everyone here today, especially a couple Iowans in there. Love to see it. I'm from Des Moines, Iowa, and you're going to hear a lot of talk today about rallies that are going to take place on March 23rd. So I just want to be here and say if you are not having a rally on March 23rd, don't fret, don't worry, because there are other opportunities to build solidarity, which is the goal of all of this anyways. So, um, a couple weeks ago, BFN Iowa officially had a little meeting and integrated ourselves, decided on our positions within the chapter. And recently we had a rally on February 16th. Um, and it went really well for having it been 8 degrees. We had about 30 to 40 people show up. It was freezing cold and I was shivering for hours afterwards. Um, and we didn't have 100% support from our branch. They acted like they were supportive, but it felt sort of half supportive, kind of iffy there. So the problem that we're running into is that our branch wants to have a rally on a Monday, May 5th. And their reason for that is because we're having a state convention. So then all the people from around the state who are coming to the convention are going to be able to go to the rally. But this frustrates us because the rank and file won't be able to join because most of us don't have Monday off, right? Um, so I ended up speaking with the APWU in my area. The president's name is Mike Bates. He's a wonderful guy. He's always been very a lot more radical than our branch is, and they're having a rally after work on March 20th. So at 5:45, from 5:45 to 7, we are going to rally out in front of the post office just like we would if we were having a rally on the 23rd, and we're going full speed ahead with helping them out for that rally. Tonight, actually, we're gathering at the APWU hall here in town at 5:30 to make signs. There will be mail handlers there, clerks, NALC, and then rural letter carriers there. So um I just wanted to just drive home the point that there may be circumstances where the old guard might not want to engage the rank and file, but this gives us the chance to get creative and work together. So it's really important that we all stick together in times like these, and can't wait to see how everybody does that.
All right, thanks, Margot. Yeah, I mean, that's just one example of how you can get connected with, the APWU local in your area. I'm a little confused why, even though NELC and APW they've had leaders speak we've spoken at each other's rallies just like a few weeks ago, but then called for different days of action. In my opinion, we should have done one big day of action, but that's something that we can encourage. We can try to build those local links. I know in Branch 9, we've had contact with the APW local here, trying to get a speaker from them. We can build those links, but building those links can show the leadership. In the future, we got to work together on this stuff. I don't really, there's no point in having 2 days of two different days of action. We should have one big one, but we can build those local links. And then just another reason to sign in the sign-in sheet. Margot made me think of something. We want to be updating the BFN website, fightingnelc.com, more so with more, we've been updating it with statements, more information, but we also want to eventually have a page that shows where we have official chapters. We've got a handful of chapters officially that have voted to form. We've got a dozen or so that are in the process. Lots of people who are finding that one or two or three or four other people that they can build with. And as people start to form chapters, we want to put that on our website. Show that we're a real thing. We're building, we're gaining momentum, we're growing across the country. So I just encourage people to sign in because there's some info about that. And we eventually will be updating the website with some of that info. But up next, let's put it over to John Murphy. Go ahead, John. You should be able to mute yourself.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm on
All
my
right.
computer microphone. My microphone just broke. So I'm here to talk about the petition. Um, we rejected the tentative agreement by a large margin, right? Like there was a very big turnout. There was no 50-50. And President Renfro is on record now saying, oh, these were not concessions and that he's going to use it as leverage moving forward, which is absolutely going against the well-being in the membership. We voted it down, so all those proposals should remain in the trash. As a rank and file movement, we want our leaders to represent the membership. So he should acknowledge us. So I drafted a petition, and it was just to it was simply, Dear Renfro, please keep the current contract, the 2019 to 2023 contract as is, and just focus solely on two issues. One being the wages, just update the wage chart. And two, abolish the CCA classification and hire directly to PTF. And the third paragraph of the petition goes on to say, if we are serious about saving the Postal Service, these are the only two things in that contract that will actually save the Postal Service, higher wages and having carriers come in and work from day one and earn retirement. That way, there's not a high turnover as we're constantly seeing across the country. CCAs come in and then a month later they quit because it's not worth their job or the wages. My office down here in Naples, Florida, East Naples, branch 4716, there was 70 coworkers. I got a majority of them all to sign on to it. And I want to talk about this. We all know Renfro's not going to acknowledge this petition. He's not going to listen to a small branch. But the petition is mostly to build the rank and file movement inside the office, right? We're all complete strangers in an office of 70. We mostly don't know any of them. We see them for a couple of minutes. Sure, you might go out for drinks with them or eat or hang out once in a while. But we're all complete strangers. So the petition is to have that one-on-one conversation with your coworker and to build the rapport of solidarity. So with it, we have an office break. So within two office breaks, 2 days, I was able to get around 70 signatures, and we mailed it certified to Renfro. I also emailed it the PDF version out to whoever wanted it, and I had over 25 folks from 25 different branches email me back saying they want the petition. And quick update, members of branch 2156 in Maury, Kentucky signed on to their version of the petition, and they also mailed it certified to Brian Renfro. Thank you to the Vice President Jim for doing that. Branch 43, Cincinnati, Ohio, they legit brought the petition to the union meeting, and their branch fully endorsed it unanimously. So that branch was fully on board. Branch 72, which is up in New Hampshire, one of the union officers taped it to the union bulletin board and they had members sign it. And then I just got an update from branch 1810 in Tulare, California. All members signed it. They mailed it certified. So thank you, Chrissy Leahy of branch 1810, the branch president. Again, this is more of a building your your rank and file, your shop floor power. And as we're going forward, the petition is that one-on-one conversation. It's the icebreaker. And the petition might seem like to you to be a silly idea, but to go up to a coworker and ask them to sign on to something is very powerful and it's very intimidating. And a former coworker who's now up in Fort Myers, Eric, was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this." And I was like, "Yeah, do it." And then he printed it out and he got cold feet because to approach a coworker and ask them to put their name onto something, he realized it's like it feels like you're going after the union and management, which is very daunting. But as I stated before, it's not really going after our union. We're reforming our union. We're building a union. And we see David Grosskopf in this Zoom meeting currently. And you see him on national news fighting the S&DC centers. He has a giant picket line with all these different unions on board. And it's like, how do we get that in our areas? And it starts from the shop floor. We need to build solidarity. So the idea of the petition is not for Renfro to address us, it's for us to build a union. So that's one of the things. And as I was just moving into the solidarity, get your clerks get your mail handlers to unite. Um, this is the broadest struggle. And I just want to reference this. It's a very basic reference why we need to work with all unions. You get a pencil, you could break a pencil. But if you get 12 pencils in a fist, you can't break 12 pencils. And I think that's one of the best organizing um, metaphors I could come up with is strength is in numbers, and we need solidarities across all unions. Because if they individually break one union one by one, we're fucked. But if we all stand together as one, as a united collective of pencils, they cannot break us. And as we see, they're breaking union by union. They just went after the TSA. Sure, they might have a union, but they have no collective bargaining. And we could turn to Starbucks right now and Amazon workers. They have a union, but they literally have no power because they don't have collective bargaining. So moving forward, please develop your shop floor and build a union bottom up and work with other unions because just picture our union as one pencil and the labor movement as a box of pencils. We're all in this together. Thank you.
All right, John, thanks. I think, yeah, it's a really good thing to think about is trying to use every opportunity to organize. And using a petition is a really good way to sort of start those, conversations with the coworkers. There's a lot of people who thought, you know, a good amount of members who thought that the privatization stuff was maybe a hoax or was overblown. It was being used to push through the contract we just rejected. I don't think that's true. I think, like, obviously, I think Renfro and the leadership are trying to do anything they can to get a contract sort of settled as quickly as possible, and they're willing to throw under the work rule changes that we rejected in order to get that. I think that's true, but that doesn't mean that privatization is a hoax. We need to link, and us being able to talk about both and linking them can show people that we're not ignoring one in order to fight the other. I mean, just to highlight why these work rule changes and why having a strong contract is so important, why having a contract that has, things that BFN advocates for, like an all-career workforce, like a $30 an hour starting wage, things like that, is in the Tolino memo. I'm sure people saw that too. What is it? The third one now that has been leaked, that is also, every single one of them has been called fake, but every single one of them has turned out to be true. When the TA was announced, when the TA was rejected, and then now, before expedited arbitration, every single time, I think USPS leadership is leaking these memos in order to sort of expose the weakness of the union leadership. And so in that memo, they talk about, the management will be pushing for, as they call it, flexibility, non-career workforce. We know what that means. It means incredibly high turnover. It means a super hyper exploited section of the workforce. It means this two-tier system that has created many of these staffing issues that we deal with. In the Wells Fargo report, they also talk about the non-career model. So that's why fighting for a strong contract is so important. If we fight against privatization, but we have a weak contract, that's a problem. It's going to create these issues going forward. We need to fight for both. And so I'll just say, yeah, thanks, John, for that. Last up is our final speaker before we open it up to discussion will be Paul Osadebe from AFG and Federal Unionists Network. So go ahead, Paul. You should be able to unmute yourself and come on in.
Hey, can you hear me?
Sure can. Go ahead, Paul.
Great. Just got these headphones. So yes, I'm Paul Asadebe. I'm a trial attorney at HUD, and I'm a steward with my local at AFGE Local 476, headquarters in DC. And I'm here to just talk about how important it is for all federal workers, no matter what you do, no matter where you are, agency, union, all that doesn't matter anymore. We are all under attack, each and every one of us. The concept of a public good is under attack right now. The concept of a career of public service, the concept that anything that you do that is not entirely focused on profit, having value, that is what's under attack. And with an attack of that scale, the only response to that is, militant, radical solidarity across every division that you can possibly think of, because they have the money, they have a lot of the law, they have the media, they have so many things. But the number one thing we have is, numbers. We have the truth. We have each other. If you use that, I don't think we can actually be defeated, but actually doing that is very difficult because we've kind of just lost practice at doing that. There's been a long history of the service model of unionism within the federal sector. Since the strike weapon was taken away a long time ago, um, that has a lot of downstream effects, and that's created a union movement that's not much of a movement. It's more of a just like we have unions, they help you file a grievance, they might do some lobbying, they'll file a lawsuit for you, but there's no like engagement of rank and file, there's no building of power, there's no cross like conception of federal workers as workers and as federal workers. And that's what needs to change right now because um, I think we're seeing that billionaires really do have a sense of themselves as like people with united interests, and we are seeing that right now. And the rest of us have not have not done as good of a job coming together. So the Federal Unionist Network, that's ideally what we are trying to do. Break down all barriers of profession, agency, region, union, all of that needs to be melded together to really build power. And to do that, you have to like kind of re-educate people about the fact that you can even do that. Because a lot of people don't know that we have that ability. They really have not been trained to think that way. And so we are trying to be some of the people that help revive that from the local level all the way up. So what that means, at least for me, is I'm here to amplify I mean, we we think of like there's like federal workers and then there's like postal workers. That needs to no longer be a division at all. We are all public servants, we're all workers, we're all people who need to be at each other's rallies and essentially make them the same thing. It's all the same fight. So if you're in DC, Baltimore, anywhere in this area, and you need um, someone who is not a postal worker but is here to fight for you, that's what we can hope to provide. And I'm willing to do that personally. If you have a rally on the 23rd and you need someone to speak and connect the dots between the attack on postal workers and the attack on public service, on workers, on the American people, then I'm ready to do that. And we can try to connect you to people all across the country, wherever you are, that also understand the struggle and are willing to help build what you're doing and get postal workers plugged into spaces with other federal workers. Because if we're all out in the street, if we're all out there challenging the narratives that have just been coming one way since at least Reagan, I think we really do have the chance to win. And if we're all engaging our communities, I think we do have it. We have the power.
All right, thank you, Paul. Yeah, it's really good to have you here to have an organizer with fun with the Federal Unionist Network. What's Federal Unionist Network for people that don't know what I mean? It started just a couple of years ago at the Labor Notes Conference, which is a conference of union activists from across different unions, and then has since grown. I got connected with them at last year's Labor Notes Conference, but what started as a handful of people has grown into the force that is playing maybe the leading edge of the fight back against these attacks from Doge, from Trump and Musk, and trying to connect workers across different unions, like Paul was saying. So it's really inspiring. I think we definitely want to get connected. Like I said, just another plug for the sign-in sheet. Um, if you have a rally on the 23rd, if you're in DC, in and around DC especially, but if you are anywhere else, because there's federal workers all across the country that FUN is connected with and organizing with, if you'd like a Federal Unionist Network speaker, please indicate that in the sign-in sheet. We can get you connected with there. Paul, did you want to come in right away to say something? Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead, and then I can explain the discussion portion and open it up for everyone else. But yeah, go ahead, Paul, and then I'll come back.
Yeah. On February 19th, we had nationwide day of action. And then this last Thursday, we issued a mass call for just workplace actions to respond to illegal firings. And those are going to be happening all across the country. And if you want BFN people and postal workers to speak at those, just let us know because you are part of the fight. And people need to understand that the postal service that they rely on, that they don't even think of as having the possibility to go away, can go away. And they are trying to do it right now. So on April 5th, I believe, there's going to be a rally in Baltimore, and they're actively looking for speakers. So if you're in that area and you want to get involved with that, you can get in contact with me and let me, if you're all postal employees, you're eligible to join the fund. I'll put the link in the chat and you can join if you want to get plugged in. Come on in.
All right, thanks, Paul. Yeah, that's definitely encourage people. So it looks like we're putting the links in the chat for Federal Unionists Network. I encourage people to check that out as well. BFN is not in competition with FUN. In fact, I see it as a part of this broader, fight back. So I really encourage people to check that out. Look for local actions in their area and maybe indicate in the sign-in sheet if you are interested, and we can try to get that sorted out. Okay, so now we're going to get into the discussion portion. I really encourage people to send Tim Bash a message. If you'd like to get on the stack or raise your hand, either one. He's keeping the list of people who want to come in, and I'm gonna, call on people as they come. And I just encourage people to keep it to like 3 or 4 minutes. At about 3.5, I'm just gonna interrupt and say, hey, try to wrap up your thought, just so that everyone has an opportunity to speak. We can always come back in for a second round if there's time, but we do want to keep this to around an hour and a half. So with that, I think our first speaker is Jamie Partridge. Go ahead, Jamie.
Hey, everyone. Jamie Partridge here in Portland, Oregon. We have a pretty robust BFN chapter, a local rank and file caucus that's been around for a while that affiliated. And we actually sponsored some pretty significant vote no rallies. And but when the March 23rd rally was announced by National, it became very clear that our local leadership, which is not supportive of BFN, was going to try to keep us out. Both the theme of including the fair contract demand and any speakers from BFN. So what we've decided to do is actually organize a feeder march. The rally is going to be held in downtown Portland, and we're going to march with our contingent and our signs about fair contract and fighting privatization to the rally, and we're going to circle the rally, which is in a square that has a circle around it, and then join the rally. So basically showing that we support the big rally, but also making a splash. And then, of course, at the rally, we'll be circulating the petition and passing out flyers to encourage people to join the BFN. So that's our way of dealing with exclusion by our branch leadership, and encourage other people to think as those kinds of creative ways of having an influence, even if you're being excluded. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jamie. Great on the timing. I love it. Next up, we got Morris, Badmouth Morris. Go ahead, buddy. Should be able. There you go. Yep.
Yo, Badmouth, Branch 226, Fort Worth. One thing I wanted to talk about is sort of because we're talking about the right to strike, and with everything that's going on, I'm not an accelerationist, but now I feel like we all are unwilling accelerationists at this point, because we got to prepare for everything going south. I wanted to talk about the less sexy end of job actions and what we need to do to get our weight up and build our clique in our communities, right? We need to be thinking about what happens when we go without pay for a month or so, right? Do you know your renters' rights? Are you trying to organize tenant unions? Are you doing stuff with Food Not Bombs to help feed the community, so when you need food, you know where to go? I'm going to link in the chat some different links for like how to start a tenant union, food shelves if you don't have one in if you don't have like little kitchens in your area, food not bombs, and yeah. And I think it's also a good thing for BFN to take lead on. We're already clearly taking the lead in so many ways in our union. I feel like community outreach, this is a way where we can take the lead on that and then also build some of that infrastructure we're going to need if we ever do get the right to strike. Or because if we got the right to strike, but we don't got the capacity for it, what's the point? You know, if I got boxing gloves, but I can't throw a punch, what's the point? And so this is a way to build infrastructure so we can take care of our communities, have our communities take care of us when shit hits the fan, right? So I think that's mutual aid versus charity. I want to talk about that. Charity is top down. Mutual aid is horizontal. It's us taking care of each other. You know what I mean? And if we do that in our communities, we are getting the public on our side even more. We're taking the lead in our union on another front, and we're building that infrastructure and getting our weight up in the event that we do end up doing a job action at some point and get the right to that, or Musk comes in and throws shit and we are going to be without pay while the courts figure it out. You know what I mean? We need to be getting our weight up. So yep, that's what I got.
All right, thank you for that. Moving along, people are doing really good with time, and I really got a lot of space on the speaking list, and so I really encourage people, even if you're feeling a bit hesitant about it, but I'm sure there's lots of people here with good stuff to say, so I really encourage you to either use the raise hand function or to message Tim Bash and get on the list. We got a good amount of space for it, and really want to hear from as wide a range of people across the country organizing with BFN, organizing March 23rd rallies, fighting back against privatization as possible. Next, we've got Mara Cahill. Go ahead, Mara. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. The thing I kind of wanted to talk about, I think it's sort of related to what Paul was saying earlier, is about why I think the right to strike is such an important part of our platform, and maybe like one of the things to be really focused on organizing around. So I want to kind of lead into it by talking about the way that the opponents of open bargaining put forward their opposition. One of their main points was, oh, we can't do this because it shows our hand, right? It's a negotiation. And I think that would be true if a contract fight was actually a negotiation. If it were, sort of something in which there is an even playing field in which we can come to an agreement, a sort of peace with management where we're both satisfied. But it's not that, it's a fight because our interests are not reconcilable. Management wants to make more money, and they want to do that by making us work more for less pay. We want to make more money and work less so we can take care of our families and so we can, live our lives, right? And so we can't, there's no way to come to an agreement with management. And management knows that, but our union leadership doesn't seem to know that. They seem to believe that we can come to a peace. But even if they didn't, our strongest weapon, our hands are tied, right? You see all these unions getting big contracts in recent years, and we're not going to get a big contract, frankly. It seems, even though we voted this down, they're sort of pushing it through against our will. And the reason for that is in part because our leadership is not willing to fight, but I think it's also because our strongest weapon is the strike. And the reason for that is just the structure of our job, right? The post office functions on a practical level, but also on the level of making money because we all go to work, right? If we all, the post office that's just how it works. If tomorrow we all punched in and no managers were there, we'd all be able to deliver our routes, right? We'd all be able to do our job. If the managers all punched in tomorrow and we weren't there, nothing would happen, right? We all know with like how bad the staffing is at my station. If 2 people call out, it's a crisis, right? So imagine if we all called out, nothing would happen, right? But more importantly, for the management side of that, they wouldn't make any money. When someone buys a stamp, they're paying for us to physically carry it to the address, right? And so that's why going on strike and the ability to say to management, right, if you don't give us what we need, what we deserve, we're not going to work. That's the strongest weapon we have, right? Because it's the only real power we have. That's how the post office works, and that's our power. That's the ability of us, and that's why it's illegal. That's why they don't want us to do it. But to me, because of that, because it's, the structure of this is based around our ability to work and the ability to, the prevention of our ability to do that, to me, that's how we win everything else. If we want a $30 an hour starting wage, if we want an all-career workforce, if we want no mandatory overtime, it has to start from, if we don't, we have to think about how we get those things. And that has to start from us as workers having the ability to democratically decide if we don't get these certain things, we're going to walk off the job. And so we have to work to fight to have that right that we deserve as people in a just society. And so I think it's important for us to remember, in the history of our union, how we got anything. And I don't know how every carrier academy is, but when I went to academy, I had a pretty strong union guy as our trainer, and he showed us a video about the 1970 strike, and he talked about it and sort of emphasized that the only reason we have anything is because we went on strike in 1970 and we won that strike. We made them give us collective bargaining. We made them shrink the time from Top Step from, was what, like 25 years, 20 years or something like crazy like that. And they shrank it to 8 years, right?
Could you start to wrap up, please?
Yeah. Sorry. So, but yeah, I think as we move forward, especially with all these attacks, we have to think about what the method for getting the things that we want is. And to me, that starts from the ability to say, we're not going to come to work if you don't give us what we want. So yeah, that's all. Thanks everyone. And thanks everyone for speaking.
Thanks, Mara. I think that's a really important point. The right to strike demand is the key part of BFN's program. And I think we've made a lot of headway in discussing that and putting that forward as a demand and making it a real thing amongst letter carriers. I really encourage people, and I'll include it in the follow-up email with our different material, but I encourage people to read the BFN Coordinating Committee statement about NELC needs to prepare to fight privatization. And it talks about how we react will depend on how the executive order is rolled out, what's contained in it, and how it's responded to by the union leadership, by the membership, by the public. But we really call for a key thing in that is calling for special meetings in every branch. Once the EO is out with a specific topic of discussing how do we fight back, what kind of escalatory actions do we need to take, and what actions we take will need to depend on how it's rolled out and how how we need to respond to it. But I really encourage people to check out that coordinating committee statement. It's up on our website, fightingnalc.com. We'll also share it out with everyone in the follow-up email. But just Mara's thoughts just kind of made me think about that. Okay, moving on. We're gonna go to Joe Stubbs next. Joe, go ahead. After Joe, we've got Ernest Gonzalez and Dave Groskopf. So Joe, go ahead first. All right.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to share a little bit about Milwaukee. We've got a lot of people interested in the Build A Fighting NALC here. So that's been a good development. There's a number of union stewards and rank and file folks that are interested in building a chapter here. So we're in the process of doing that right now. And we had an interesting experience at the last general meeting trying to push for the 23rd rallies, basically to be about well, initially we planned to introduce a resolution to hold these March 23rd rallies, and then it became clear that the leadership was going to announce their rally, their idea for the rallies against privatization on the 23rd. So we were kind of in an interesting situation, and we basically proposed at the meeting that the rally be about both fighting privatization and also about building a strong contract. And unfortunately, we lost the vote. So some room for improvement here. And it was just interesting to me. A lot of people, the branch is pretty supportive overall to building a fighting NALC, but it seems like a lot of the older members and retirees, folks, especially tending to be people that are, paid on the top tier of our two-tier contracts, who don't really seem to understand the urgency, basically, of fighting for better pay, and like this idea of just fighting for the postal service to be saved as it isn't going to appeal to a lot of carriers, because when the carriers are being burned out and destroyed, new CCAs, new carriers being worked like 60-hour weeks or whatever, you're not really motivated to save the post office. The post office isn't this great thing for you to save. It's actually exploiting you. So our messaging can't be this conservative, just, oh, save the post office, because that's not really resonating with everybody. So anyway, I just wanted to report that we're still going to be participating in the rally. And I mean, I'm going to still be carrying signs about the contract. Like, to me, this rally is really about the contract as much as it is about saving, stopping privatization. Obviously, we have to stop privatization, but I'm not just going to fight for the post office as it is, because the status quo is unacceptable. So I just wanted to report that, and I'm curious how folks are navigating that tension, or whether you've seen people feel more sort of get into this more conservative position of, oh no, we can't be making a big noise about the contract. We have to fight to save the postal service. That's been our experience in Milwaukee, and I'll report back as we continue to progress.
Great, thank you, Joe. It's really good to hear, I think, a report like that, because it proves what we've been trying to say of, like, you can't ignore the contract. If we say save the post office and we're going to keep everything the same, I think some people are going to say, well, maybe privatization wouldn't be that bad if it would shake things up. That's how some people are thinking. I think that's incorrect, but you know what I mean? Anyways, Joe, that's highlighted a very good point. We have to connect the two, and we have to. That's the role I think BFN can play in these. So moving along, we've got. Who's up next? Ernest Gonzalez. Go ahead, Ernest.
Am I muted?
No, you're good. Can hear you.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you, buddy. Yeah, Ernest Gonzalez, Alamo Branch 421 down in San Antonio, Texas. To piggyback off what the last kid just said, we originally were going to have two rallies down here. Fortunately enough, the venue that we were originally going to do, the leadership down here thought was a more favorable outcome. So we're going to have a joint rally together. I'm of the mind that you will not catch me fucking dead in that Fight Like Hell shirt. I understand to show solidarity. I will be wearing a red shirt anyway, but it will not be that Fight Like Hell shirt. Again, I'm on board. I'll be there voicing my opinion, but I will do so at my own peril, man. Real quickly, we're going to be having rallies all over Texas. The southeastern branch of Build A Fighting NALC is having a North Texas rally. It's going to be held in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You can get with Badmouth if you need specifics on that. If you are going to be anywhere in Central Texas, you can come to the San Antonio one. I'll be there at that one physically, and then we'll also have one in South Texas, which will be held in Corpus Christi. You can get with my brother Ken Grigsby. He'll be the one handling that. I did go ahead and put a link in there for anyone wanting any more specifics on that. There's a nice little promo video that we put together. Most of the websites are downgrading the audio on it, but you can go ahead and share that link. And then the actual National Fighting NALC website is also on this link in case you're not in the Texas area, but you also want to join Build A Fighting NALC. The APW rallies, we're kind of disappointed. They're having theirs on 320 for some reason. I don't know why, but then they're having theirs at 8 a.m. Again, like what Tyler just said, I wish that we would all be able to come together for stuff like this. Nevertheless, we've been reaching out to contacts with them. Hopefully they will get hopefully they'll get on board with us. One of the focuses that I wanted to put towards my carriers that are going to be at those three Texas rallies is to make sure that you have a camera in your hand at all times. We can't guarantee that the local news is going to show up. We can't guarantee that the national news is going to show up. And even if they do, we can't guarantee that they're going to be pushing a narrative that we need to be pushing out there, that this is more than just do not privatize the Postal Service. We have a contract that we are fighting for. One of the easiest ways to control that narrative is as we start to push this content online, you can start to have interviews with other carriers. You can start to have someone interview you so that we make sure as this content starts to get online and as people see these large crowds, you will be able to push the narrative that we want to make sure that we stick to. This is a contract rally. This is not just save the Postal Service for all the inefficiencies that management has been putting in there, but this is about saving the livelihood for the people that do on this type of work. The other thing that I wanted to talk back on, what Tyler just said, was this whole thing about precarious work, or matter of fact, I think Mara touched on it with this idea of, when Alan Greenspan was asked about what was his great 2008 economy right before the crash, actually, he designated it to the precariat of the work, which means that people are taking much more precarious work. They're not guaranteed 20-year careers or not guaranteed pensions. And if that is a benefit to your economy, I can't understand why you would be championing that. But again, if you're someone looking at it from the top-down hierarchy, that's beneficial. You can have people do stuff for starvation wages. And if you have most people that are out of work anyway, the likelihood that you'll get them to fight amongst themselves for peanuts and scraps is much more likely. So again, I'm glad to hear that everybody's on here. I'm going to try to keep it short because I know people got stuff to do on Sunday, and I'm no exception to that rule. So again, if you're down in Texas and you don't have anywhere to go, try to get to one of those venues. It will be on Sunday. Most of them will be held around 12 to 1 o'clock. And yeah, thank you guys all for being here, man. Appreciate it, Tyler. Thanks, man.
All right, thank you, Ernest. Everyone's been really good on time with timing, and has also come in with really good messaging. And so I just want to encourage. We have 2 speakers left on the list. If this is I'm going to make a couple more shout outs, announcements, but I just want to encourage people. If you want to speak, please indicate as soon as possible. Either raise your hand with the raise hand function or give Tim Bash a message. Otherwise, after these 2 speakers, I'll sum us up a little bit and we can get on with our days, which is all right by me. But I just want to make people aware. We got a little bit of time if you want to come in. So, David Grosskopf, go ahead. You're up next.
Thanks, Tyler. Dave Grosskopf, president of Branch 3, Buffalo, Western New York, second in command of the CLC and trustee candidate in the national election in 2026. What I want to talk about a little bit, Tyler, is kind of back it up a little here. What I see every day as a president out there, whether that's on social media or dealing with my own people, is the apathy within our own union, that they do not, for whatever reason, and there's multiple reasons, whether it's political or personal or whatever, they don't believe that this threat to dismantle the Postal Service is real. And I can't stress enough, this is not a drill. This is not anything that we've faced before. And those people that are stating that it's no big deal, or if we've heard this in the past, in my opinion, they're being irresponsible and they're being disingenuous, to the membership. There's multiple things that have occurred that in the past have not occurred. The threat to fire and eliminate the Board of Governors. The Board of Governors have lawyered up based on that threat. The threat to abolish the Postal Rate Commission, the threat to terminate top USPS leadership. The Deputy Postmaster General refuses to leave the building because he fears, Doge is going to walk in or somebody's going to walk in and fire him. The threat to move the USPS under the Commerce Department, moving control of it to the executive branch. Other federal unions' collective bargaining agreements have been nullified. Multiple federal agencies have been disbanded. The illegal firing of thousands and thousands of federal employees. The OPM just released a memo that contracts with federal unions cannot supersede an agency's ability to lay its employees off, which is an obvious problem when we have protections like that in our collective bargaining agreement. One of the things I want to talk to you guys about today, here is, again, talking to your own people. Part of the problem we got here is we got a president of the union. Let's be frank, nobody believes what he's saying. And that's an issue. I'm not here to defend Brian Renfro, but Brian Renfro is right when we've got to have all hands on deck here. And one of the things I was just told in a leadership meeting at Region 11, and I used this during the main session to basically rebuild Renfro's credibility because nobody believes him, is Renfro met with James Comer. who's a Republican out of Kentucky's First Ward Congressional District, who is also the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, which oversees the Postal Service. That's a massively powerful committee within the federal government. And Comer told Renfro that DOGE was going to dismantle the Department of Education, and then they were moving on to the USPS. Now, Comer told Renfro this in advance of DOGE actually going in and attempting to do what they're currently doing, which is dismantling the Department of Education. And the reason I'm bringing that up to you guys on the call today is this shit's real. We have never faced this before. You got to stand up. You got to squat up. You got to whatever, suck your pride. Renfro makes my skin crawl, but I got to save letter carrier jobs. I got to save our right to collectively bargain, and I got to save the United States Postal Service. Now, what the other things we were told, the plan when and if DOGE walks in that door, there's a two-pronged plan from the NALC, which number one is to file a national level grievance if DOGE attempts to access our member information. The other second prong of the NALC's national plan is a court injunction, like many federal other unions have filed, to stop anything that DOGE attempts to do. So we need to know, again, what National's plan is. That's what it is. Pertaining to the grievance aspect of it, and you should be hearing this at some point from your leadership, the NALC is looking for the following folks in different categories to provide evidence for a national level grievance. Number one, they're looking for members with OWCP claims, light duty issues, reasonable accommodation, FMLA cases. Branch presidents, we're looking for receiving complaints from members about DOGE accessing their personal information when and if that happens. And third, folks that are attending EAP. Initially, that can be kept anonymous, but if this goes to a court case, you may be exposed as far as your identity and or what condition or a diagnosis, you may have.
Start to wrap up, Dave.
Yeah, so those are the things that headquarters is proposing to do that we, again, need to obviously help them out with, and the ideas that we have as a reform movement as a whole. But you should be hearing shortly, hopefully, from your local leadership about those plans and asking for help. That's all I had. I appreciate the time, Tyler. Thank you, guys, girls.
All right, thank you, David. That's good. Good to hear. Thanks for the info. Okay, just moving along. We're gonna go, John. We're gonna go with people who've come in for first round first, and then we'll go with you probably at the end there. So we're gonna go with it's Greg, Melissa, then Charles, and then John, and then we'll end it there. And I'll say a few things to wrap us up. But I'm sorry, and Matt Copson's in there as well. So I'm sorry, but go ahead, Greg. You are up next.
Thanks, Tyler. Dave kind of stole my point about the lack of there is a lack of apathy towards this. But if something happens in my office, I always assume that it's happening in other offices. And one of the things I've noticed in the last week is, oh, the post office they've been trying to privatize it for 20 years. It always comes from a veteran carrier, and what they leave out is that there was always a fight. They never talk about the fight that if they picketed in the late 90s or when they tried to do 5-day delivery, there was always a fight. They seem to leave that out, and it's always a veteran carrier talking to a younger carrier. So if you hear that in your office, I would absolutely grab that younger carrier and say they left out a key element. As a branch president, one thing I'm trying to do is I do have some people in my office say, "Oh, maybe DOGE is a good thing. Maybe we'll make $90,000 after they come in because they're going to get rid of all the supervisors and we're going to be great." And I think what I'm trying to do is get across to people like Elon and Trump are not. I don't care what anybody's politics are, but what I'm going to try to do in my meeting this week is say, if you support the guy, if you voted for the guy, if whatever, I don't understand it, but some people do, but you can disagree with them on this. You can come to a union meeting, you can go to a rally, and you can actually disagree with them on one thing. I disagreed with Barack Obama and Joe Biden on a lot of things, but I could tell you if they came for the post office, I would disagree with them. So I think it's key to get across to your I'm a president, but there's a lot of rank and file. And if your president's not saying it, stand up in a meeting and say it, because this is real. I think Dave said it correct. This is the biggest threat we've ever had. And if they say I've heard that before, say nobody's ever tried to fire the board of governors. And I could care less about the board of governors. There's some good people on there, but this is the biggest threat we've ever faced. These rallies are just the beginning. We've been having meetings about the Boston one. We just had one this morning. Um, I think the Boston one's going to be the best one. I'd like this to be, and I said it's just a start, but this isn't going anywhere. And I think these meetings are great. Um, I just want to say, Paul, who spoke earlier, can we get him hired as a CCA or PTF and run him for president like as soon as possible? Because I wish that guy was my national president. Thank you for the time, Tyler, and good job.
All right, Greg, I appreciate it. I personally think the Minnesota one's going to be the best rally, but maybe we can have a little friendly rivalry there. We can compare numbers and speeches. Nah, I'm just kidding. That can be good though. But this idea of overcoming apathy, I think we need to look at things like the no vote campaign, like preparing the fight against privatization. None of these things alone is going to be able to overcome 100% of the apathy that is built into the reality that letter carriers and working class people have to deal with every day. It makes you want to be apathetic. We have to fight back against that. These campaigns, these fights can play a role in changing that. The fight over the last year for open bargaining, against the sellout contract, all this other stuff hasn't changed 100% of letter carriers, feelings, but we're starting to develop a really solid, small but growing group of people across the country who are active, who do want to fight. And so I think we just keep that in mind. You and Dave made some good points on that. I think this wait and see approach it's inevitable, for a lot of people. Our duty is to prepare, try to convince people, but then when shit hits the fan, that's when the points that we made will connect for people because they'll see it with their own experience. Moving on. Up next, we've got, so just to read out the list. Okay, we've got a few more. Okay, we've got Virgilio, Melissa, Matt, Charles, and then John Murphy. And then we're going to cut off the stack there because that will be an hour and a half mark. So sorry if anyone else wanted to come in. That's where we're going to cut off the list. But up next, we've got Virgilio. Sorry about that. I was looking at the wrong stack, Melissa. You're after Virgilio. So Virgilio, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Virgilio Gose, NLC resident in Seattle. I've been sharing information. Okay, hear me?
It's a little muffled. I don't know if you've got your mic covered or something, but
that's weird. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's better. Okay.
Okay, there we go. So yeah, I just wanted to say, I've been sharing information on chat also to encouraging everybody to connect with their local labor councils and the local Federal Union Network. Very important to show solidarity right now with our fellow federal workers. They've been under attack. We just saw how the TSA's contract was just annulled because, the federal government is able to do that, apparently. So when they say that they're not coming after us, we're also federal workers. We're just, I wouldn't say lucky, but that was a hard fight during the 1970s strike to get the independent federal agency that is the United States Postal Service to actually be outside of political control. That's the only thing that's keeping, the president from just simply annulling our contract. So, I'm going to echo everything here. Like, the contract campaign message is the same as the anti-privatization campaign message. We worked hard. We showed the American public with their hard work to do. And that's why we should be paid more, and that's why we should be privatizing the postal service. We provide great service to the American public with lower rates than private care. So I would encourage everybody just take this threat seriously. It's very important that we all come together, and apathy is a very hard thing to overcome sometimes, but just talk in person, one-on-one conversations is the best, because we all have to be here together, right? So thanks for your time, everybody. Just continue to fight.
All right, Virgilio, thanks for that. Melissa, you're up next.
Hi, thanks, Tyler. Melissa Rakestraw, Branch 825, out of Oak Brook, Illinois. so this has been a really great discussion. I really appreciate everybody's input. Um, I hope folks keep in mind that even if there's people around you now who you might think are apathetic or don't care, that just assume they're watching, and let's go out there and build this rally to be as successful as possible. Struggle changes consciousness. People who are saying this now down the line might be the people who are, leading the charge out on the pickets and that kind of thing. So don't write people off. Realize that this isn't a one-off. This is going to be a prolonged struggle that we're setting off on. It really isn't a partisan issue. When 6-day delivery was under attack in 2011, we marched on every congressional office in the country. Here in Chicago, we did a President's Day march, I think it was in 2013, on President Obama's personal home about not cutting 6-day delivery and saving the post office and that kind of thing. So consciousness will change. People will get it at some point, and the ones who don't, we can't. We have to keep moving forward and try to bring them along as we go. Um, so I really wish that we had access to this agreement that DeJoy has signed with Doge to bring them in. If there are any ways that we can get a hold of that, might be something we can use to see the parameters of that and calculating our strategies going forward. I'm very encouraged by the fact that we had a speaker here today from AFG, and what he was talking about was right on point, that all of our struggles are linked. And keeping that in mind as we go forward. We've seen tons of rallies all across the country outside of Tesla's dealerships and their stock tanking. It's made a difference that people have come out into the streets to fight and say this is not okay. And we have to keep trying to move that forward and make those connections in our workplaces, on our own workroom floor, and also with the people around us who are under attack, because it's not going to stop. And when we look at these attacks, they're going to go for the most vulnerable first. So we've got to stand with whomever is under attack, because at some point it's going to be us in the crosshairs. So thanks a lot, everybody. I appreciate the contributions we've heard today, and solidarity.
All right, thanks, Melissa. Really appreciate that. That was some good points there. Let's move on. Next is Matt Copson. After him, we have Charles, and then John, and then I'll sum us up. So, Matt, go ahead.
All right. Hi. Sorry, I'm gonna have to watch this again on YouTube later because we were out canvassing all of our flyers for our rally. I just wanted to say that it's real easy to be involved in the community and to get this message out there. Literally spent an hour walking around, went into like most businesses, and pretty much all of them completely love us. So ripping them out of our hands, sticking them on the windows, got photos of it all. They're saying, hey, I'm going to spread this on my socials. Great. Real easy to do. And I just want to say that we're all in this fight. And even if you only got an hour to spare, man, just get out there, get the word out. People love us. They're going to come down. I found out at the union meeting that our branch rally in Cincinnati is actually going to be joined by the branch from Dayton, Ohio, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, and Covington, Kentucky. So expecting a very good turnout. But that's all I wanted to say, and keep on rocking, everyone.
All right, that's exactly right. The public support is there. It needs to be. If we give it an organized expression, we can really build a massive movement to fight back against any attempts at privatization. Matt's experience there shows exactly what's possible. Okay, Charles, go ahead. You should be able to All right, go ahead, Charles.
I wasn't even going to talk, but somebody brought something up, and it goes to something I've been fighting for and getting nowheres with management anywhere else. So it shouldn't be a question of whether management wants to make more money by having us make less. We want to make more money, but they claim they can't give us more because the post office isn't making enough. Because of that, the question should be, how can the post office move into the future? What are management's plans for increasing revenue? Because without that, there will not be a future. And that goes to directly the question of privatization, because the only way the post office can move into the future is as a whole. Otherwise, there won't be any mail delivered to most of the red states because there's not enough of a population to support that. Just a thought.
All right. Thanks, Charles. John, I'm going to say a few things and then I'll wrap us up and we can get out of here. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I just want to talk about like how the fact that this is not a Democrat versus Republican thing. I'm down here in Florida. It's a very conservative area. I would say probably more than 80% of my office probably voted for Trump if they voted. The narrative going around the office is, oh, this is just Renfro and the Democrats and the AFL-CIO doing an anti-Trump thing, right? But it's not. As David and others have said, this is a attack on the working class. And this is what I was trying to drive home earlier. It's like that one-on-one conversation with your worker, your coworker is vital because we're all mostly living paycheck to paycheck. We are the working class. And we might be postal workers, but your spouse or your family or your friend might be a federal worker, like a TSA member or a teacher. The Department of Education just has their attacks going. This struggle is linked. Um, so going forward, please talk to your coworkers about attending March 23rd. Sure, I'm not going to be wearing the Fight Like Hell red shirt, but I am going to stand in solidarity in the public with my national union. Behind the scenes in our office, I might say fuck Renfro, but out in the streets, I'll be standing next to him. And that's what we need to be addressing is the solidarity. And please, if anyone's saying that this is a anti-Trump or Renfro doing his message, just listen to what they have to say. Don't dismiss them. And as we said earlier, it doesn't matter if you voted yes or no on the tentative agreement. If we save the post office and we're still making poverty wages, the service won't be there. It'll still be a subsidy for Amazon and Walmart and Target. So please get active on your office level. I can't stress that enough because currently the three stewards in my office are saying that this is a anti-Trump rally and they have better things to do. These are my stewards. These are my stewards, right? They're the face of our union and they're going around telling people that they have better things to do. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. So if you have people like that in your office, just please, in the back of your mind, think about stepping up and replacing all those branch leaders and national leaders. We need anyone that's not on board with this fight about cross solidarity needs to be voted out. March 23rd is for the Postal Service, but as Tyler stated earlier, we don't even have all four postal unions on board with 1 day of action. This is one of the reasons why we need one big postal union. We need one big postal union because we can't allow the suits and ties that got us into this mess to get us out of this mess. And as a reform movement, we need people like Tyler. We need people like David. We need people all across the country that are empowering the rank and file to unite across crafts and across industries. We need to stand united as a working class. So thank you.
Thanks, John. Okay, this has been a really good discussion. John took a lot of what I was going to say, so I won't repeat myself. I think there were a lot of good points here. I think while we would like to have had thousands of people on this call, we do have a solid group of people who can help get those hundreds and get those thousands out into the streets here with our ideas. And so I just really want to highlight again, you should be all out for March 23rd and prepare the fight against the executive order. In the process, we can build BFN. And I really think highlight the demands in the program of BFN on signs, on banners, in speeches. We want to attract people to BFN's banner. We want to put forward a positive program of what's necessary. We don't want to just save the post office and keep it the way it is. We want to save the post office from privatization, keep it public, and fight for a high quality public postal service that is good for both the workers and the public that we serve. And I think that we have a role to play in society like that. Just in Branch 9, we have an official Branch 9 banner that says no to privatization, fight for a high quality public postal service. We'll have a BFN Minneapolis banner that says fight for the right to strike. We're going to have that front and center. I really encourage people to put some of these slogans on signs, on banners for the rally itself. If you signed in and you indicated, we'll try to get you connected. There's a Federal Unionists Network member or chapter in your area to get some speakers and get a contingent out there. And just be on the lookout. We'll go to the website fightingnalc.com to stay up to date. We'll be releasing statements and information and materials. If you sign in, we'll send you the flyers you can use at the rally itself. But check out the website periodically for more information there. And we're planning a Zoom meeting after the rallies, but I think we got to come to an exact date. I think especially once the executive order is out, we want to do a mass Zoom meeting to kind of get everyone on board with how do we escalate actions to fight back against these attacks. So I really want to encourage people. March 23rd is our first and potentially only nationally coordinated day of action before an executive order comes out. This is our opportunity to plant a flag and show the public support, mobilize people to our rally, and put Musk and Doge on notice that if they come for the Postal Service, we're willing and able to fight back and get organized. And so really appreciate everyone being here. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and be on the lookout for an email with more materials for March 23rd. So solidarity, everybody, and take care. Have a good one.